Captain Taemin stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge and watched the stars through the main window. His ship was small compared to military vessels, just a research ship with a crew of 47 people. They had been mapping this sector of space for 3 months now, and everything had been quiet. Too quiet. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Sung-ho from his station. The young officer frowned at his screen. "There's a signal coming from Vega Prime. It's a distress call, but it's very weak." Taemin moved closer to look at the data. Vega Prime was a human colony, home to about 5,000 people. They grew food and mined minerals for the Federation. The colony was peaceful and far from any conflicts. "How old is the signal?" Taemin asked. "About 6 hours," Sung-ho replied. "Sir, I think we should investigate." Dr. Hai-jin, the ship's chief scientist, walked onto the bridge. She was carrying a data tablet and looked concerned. "Captain, if there's trouble at Vega Prime, we might be the only ship close enough to help. The nearest military vessel is 3 days away." Taemin nodded. He knew she was right. "Set course for Vega Prime. Maximum speed." The horizon's edge moved through space, and after 2 hours, the colony planet appeared on their screens. But something was very wrong. The planet's surface showed large fires burning in multiple locations. The orbital platforms were dark and silent. There were no ships, no communications, nothing. "My God," whispered Engineer Mi-sun from her station. "What happened here?" Taemin felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "Scan for survivors. Sung-ho. Check for any threats in the area." They searched for an hour. The colony was destroyed. Every building had been burned or smashed. The landing team found no survivors. Whatever had attacked Vega Prime had killed everyone quickly and efficiently. The destruction was complete. Dr. Hai-jin worked with the landing team to search the ruins. She found something in what used to be the colony's main computer center. It was a data core, damaged but still functional. She brought it back to the ship immediately. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, her voice shaking. The data core contained the colony's final recordings. The screen showed images of massive ships appearing in the sky. They were unlike any human vessels. The ships were dark and covered in strange symbols. They had weapons that fired beams of red energy, cutting through buildings like paper. The recording showed people running and screaming. Then the image went dark. But there was more. The colony's sensors had recorded data about the attacking ships. The computer had analyzed their technology automatically. Hai-jin brought up the analysis on the main screen. "These ships are far more advanced than ours," she explained. "Their weapons, their shields, their engines, everything is beyond our current technology. The computer identified them from old galactic records. They're called the Vrexian Dominion." "What do we know about them?" Taemin asked. Hai-jin scrolled through the data. "Not much. The records are old, from exploration missions decades ago. The Vrexians are an empire that conquers other species. They believe they are superior to everyone else. They take what they want and destroy what they don't need." "How many worlds have they conquered?" Sung-ho asked quietly. 47 systems, Hai-jin read from the screen. "They've never lost a battle, never retreated, never negotiated." She paused. "And according to this data, they're moving through this sector right now, claiming all the resource-rich planets." Mi-sun spoke up from her engineering station. "Captain, if they destroyed Vega Prime, they might attack other colonies too. We need to warn the Federation immediately." Taemin knew she was right, but he also knew they needed more information. The Federation had to understand what they were facing. "Hai-jin, can you learn anything else from that data core?" "I'm trying, but it's badly damaged. Give me a few hours." Those few hours changed everything. While Hai-jin worked on the data, Sung-ho detected a ship approaching their position. It was small and fast, clearly a scout vessel, and it was Vrexian. "Captain, they've detected us," Sung-Ho reported. "They're scanning our ship." Taemin had to make a decision, and he had to make it quickly. They could run, try to escape before the Vrexians learned too much about them. Or they could stay and gather information about the enemy, even though it would expose them completely. He thought about the 5,000 dead people on Vega Prime. He thought about the other human colonies in this sector. The Federation needed information about these aliens if humanity was going to survive. "Sung-Ho, run a full scan of that ship," Taemin ordered. "I want every detail about their technology, their weapons, their engines. Everything." "Sir, if we do that, they'll know exactly where we are. They'll be able to track us." "I know," Taemin said quietly. "Do it anyway." The Horizon's Edge activated all its sensors. The scanning beams reached out and touched the Vrexian scout ship, gathering data about every system on board. The alien vessel immediately responded by changing course toward them. Misun's voice was worried. "Captain, they're calling for help. I'm detecting a transmission going out to..." "Oh no. They're calling their main fleet." "How long do we have?" Taemin asked. "Based on the transmission direction and estimated fleet speed, maybe 3 hours. Captain, their fleet is massive. We can't fight them." Taemin looked at his crew. They were scared, but they trusted him. He had led them through dangerous situations before, but this was different. This was bigger than anything they had faced. "Get me everything we learned from that scan," he ordered. "Ye-Jin, finish with that data core. We need to know everything we can about the Vrexians before they get here. Mi-sun, I need you to work on the engines and weapons. Make any improvements you can." "Captain, improvements won't be enough," Mi-sun said. "We're a research ship against a war fleet." "I know," Taemin replied. "But we're going to make them remember us." The crew worked frantically for the next 3 hours. They gathered every piece of information they could. They analyzed Vrexian weapons and shields. They studied their tactics and technology. And they waited. When the Vrexian fleet arrived, it was even worse than they feared. 30 massive warships appeared in space around them. Each one was 10 times the size of the Horizon's Edge. Their weapons were powered up and ready to fire. The Horizon's Edge was completely surrounded. There was no escape. And somewhere on the lead ship, an alien commander was looking at them, deciding their fate. The largest Vrexian ship was called the Eternal Conquest. Inside its command center, Supreme Commander Vexthar sat on his chair and looked at the small human vessel on his screen. He was old by Vrexian standards, with dark blue skin marked by scars from many battles. His 4 eyes studied the research ship with cold interest. "Another weak species," he said to his officers. "Look at their primitive vessel. Their weapons are barely functional. Their shields could not stop a child's toy." His second officer, a younger Vrexian named Krell Noth, nodded. "Shall I destroy them immediately, Commander?" "Not yet," Vexthar replied. He had conquered 47 star systems in his long career. He had faced many different alien species, and they all reacted the same way when confronted with his fleet. They begged, they cried, they offered him everything they had. It amused him to hear their pleas before he destroyed them. "Open a communication channel to their ship," he ordered. On the Horizon's Edge, Sung-Ho looked up from his station. "Captain, they're contacting us." "Put them on screen," Taemin said. He stood straight and calm, even though his heart was beating fast. The screen showed Vexthar sitting on his command chair. The alien was large and covered in armor that gleamed under the lights. His 4 eyes focused on Taemin with the look of a predator studying prey. "I am Supreme Commander Vexthar of the Vrexian Dominion," the alien said. The translation device made his voice sound deep and harsh. "You are in territory claimed by the Dominion. Your species was not asked for permission. You do not belong here." Taemin kept his face calm. He needed time. Misun was still working on the ship's systems, making modifications that might give them a chance. Every second of conversation was valuable. "I am Captain Taemin of the Human Federation research vessel Horizon's Edge," he replied. "We did not know this space was claimed. We are peaceful explorers. We mean no harm to the Dominion." Vexathar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peaceful. I have heard that word from 47 species before you. They all claim to be peaceful. They all died anyway. We can leave this space," Taemin offered. "We can return to our territory and never come back. There is no need for conflict." The alien commander leaned forward. "You misunderstand your situation, human. You have seen our ships. Your sensors have recorded our technology. You know about our presence in this sector. This makes you dangerous, even if you are weak." Taemin tried again. "We can negotiate. We have resources you might find valuable. Knowledge, technology. We could establish trade between our peoples." Vexthar's 4 eyes narrowed. He studied Taemin carefully, watching the human's body language. He saw the slight tension in the human shoulders. He saw the way Taemin's hands gripped the edge of his console. He saw the fear in the eyes of the other humans on the bridge. "I have studied many species," Vexthar said. "You all show the same signs when you know death is near. Your bodies betray you. Fear makes you weak and predictable." He paused. "Your species shows all the standard responses: increased heart rate, rapid breathing, stress hormones. You are no different from the others. You are no threat to the Dominion." On the Horizon's Edge bridge, Haijin whispered to Taemin, "Keep him talking. Misun needs 2 more minutes." Taemin nodded slightly. "What happens to species that surrender to the Dominion? Can we become part of your empire?" Vexthar seemed to consider this. "Some species become servants if they are useful. They work in our mines. They build our ships. They serve the Dominion for generations until they are no longer needed. Is this what you offer, human? To become slaves?" "I offer survival," Taemin said quietly. "For my species and yours. War benefits no one." "War benefits the strong," Vexthar corrected him. "And the Dominion is always the strongest. We have technology you cannot imagine. We have weapons that could destroy your home world from orbit in minutes. We have conquered civilizations far more advanced than yours." He leaned back in his chair. "You have nothing we want, except this space you occupy." Behind Taemin, Misun gave a small nod. The modifications were complete. Sung-Ho had also finished his work, analyzing the Rexian fleet formation and identifying their flagship's exact position. Taemin took a slow breath. This was the moment. Everything depended on what happened next. "Then we have nothing more to discuss," Taemin said. Vexthar smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Finally, you understand. I almost respected you for trying, human. You lasted longer than most in your negotiations. But the result is always the same." He turned to Krell Noth. "The human has seen too much. His ship has scanned our vessels. He knows about our presence in this sector. This knowledge cannot be allowed to spread." Krell Noth waited for the order. This was routine for them. They had done this hundreds of times before. Vexthar looked back at the screen, at Taemin standing on his small bridge surrounded by his frightened crew. The alien commander felt nothing. This was just another weak species being removed from the Dominion's path. "Neutralize him," Vexthar ordered. "Make it quick." Those words would become famous in human history. The moment when an alien commander made the worst mistake of his life. But Vexthar did not know that yet. He simply gestured to end the communication, and the screen went dark. "Send 6 fighters," he told Krell Noth. "Destroy the research vessel. Leave no debris large enough to identify." "Yes, Commander," Krell Noth replied. He gave the orders, and 6 Vrexian fighter craft launched from the fleet. They moved toward the Horizon's Edge with their weapons charging. On the human ship, alarms started ringing. Sung-Ho reported, "6 fighters incoming, weapons locked on us. They'll be in firing range in 45 seconds. The crew looked at Tae-min. They all knew they could not win this fight. Their ship had only basic defensive weapons. The Vrexian fighters were military craft designed for killing, but Tae-min was smiling. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had made a terrible decision and accepted its cost. "Misun, are the modifications ready?" he asked. "Yes, Captain," she replied. "But I have to warn you, this will destroy the ship. The reactor will overload. The quantum drive will tear itself apart. Everyone needs to be in escape pods before we activate it." "Then let's show them what happens when you underestimate humans," Tae-min said. "Hyojin, upload all our data about the Vrexians to the escape pod computers. Every piece of information we gathered. Sung-Ho, prepare the pods for emergency launch." "Captain, what are you planning?" Hyojin asked, though she already knew the answer. "We're going to make sure that order to neutralize us costs them more than they can afford," Tae-min replied. "And we're going to make sure the Federation knows exactly what they're facing." He looked at his crew, the 47 people who had trusted him to keep them safe. Now he was asking them to trust him as he ordered the destruction of their ship. "Abandon ship," he commanded. "Everyone to the escape pods. Now." The crew moved quickly. They had trained for this. Within 30 seconds, everyone was sealed inside the escape pods. Tae-min was the last to enter his pod, sitting alone as he activated the final sequence on his command console. "Computer, execute protocol Misun Gamma," he said. "Authorization Tae-min Alpha 7. The computer acknowledged. The horizon's edge began to accelerate, moving not away from the Vrexian fleet, but directly toward it, toward the massive flagship where Vexthar sat, confident in his victory. Vexthar watched his tactical display with mild interest as the 6 fighters approached the human ship. The horizon's edge was still floating in space, not moving, not fighting back. This was normal. Most species simply gave up when they realized resistance was hopeless. Then something changed. The human ship began to move. But instead of trying to escape, it accelerated directly toward the Vrexian fleet, toward his flagship. "What are they doing?" Krelnoth asked, confused. Vexthar studied the display. The research vessel's engines were running at maximum power, but it made no sense. Even at full speed, the small ship could not damage his flagship. The Eternal Conquest's shields could stop a meteor strike. A research vessel ramming them would be like an insect hitting a wall. "Perhaps they hope to die with honor," Vexthar said. "Let them come. Their sacrifice will change nothing." But something felt wrong. In his long career, Vexthar had learned to trust his instincts. The human captain had seemed afraid during their conversation, but his final expression had been different. He had been smiling. Why would he smile when facing death? "Full sensor scan of that vessel," Vexthar ordered. "Now." The sensors reached out, but they found something unexpected. The human ship was dumping all its power into the engines and one other system. The sensors identified it as a quantum entanglement drive, an experimental technology that most species considered too dangerous to use. "Commander, their reactor is overloading," the tactical officer reported. "They're deliberately causing a cascade failure." Vexthar stood up from his chair. "Shields to maximum. Move the fleet back." But it was too late. The horizon's edge reached the edge of the Vrexian formation, and its reactor exploded. The blast was massive, but that was not the real danger. The quantum drive, stressed beyond its limits by Misun's modifications, tore a hole in space itself. A gravitational vortex appeared, pulling everything nearby toward it. 3 Vrexian cruisers, caught in the sudden gravity well, tried to escape, but their engines were not fast enough. They were pulled into the distortion and crushed by impossible forces. Their hulls crumpled like paper. Their crews died instantly. The flagship shook violently. Alarms screamed across the command center. The shields held, but barely. Objects not secured went flying. 2 officers were thrown from their stations. "Damage report!" Vexthar shouted over the noise. "Shields at 40%, Krell reported. 3 cruisers destroyed. The distortion is collapsing but sending out gravitational waves. 2 more ships have minor damage." Vexthar stared at the tactical display. 3 cruisers gone, just like that, destroyed by a research vessel with primitive weapons. It should have been impossible. It was impossible, yet it had happened. "Commander, we're detecting multiple small objects moving away from the explosion site," another officer reported. "They're escape pods. The human crew abandoned ship before the attack." "How many pods?" Vexthar demanded. 47, sir. All heading in different directions. They're using the gravitational disturbance to mask their trajectories." Vexthar felt something he had not experienced in decades. Uncertainty. These humans had destroyed their own ship and sacrificed themselves to take down 3 of his cruisers. The tactical mathematics did not match any species he had encountered before. Most races valued individual survival above all else. They did not throw away lives for strategic advantage. But more concerning was the implication. If this was what a research vessel could do, what would human warships be capable of? "Find those pods," Vexthar ordered. "I want every human captured or killed. No one can be allowed to escape with the information they have gathered." The Rexian fleet began hunting the escape pods. Fighter craft spread out, scanning for the small vessels. They found many of them quickly. Some pods were destroyed. Some were damaged beyond repair. But a few managed to reach the nearest moon and crash on its surface. Taemin's pod was one of them. He woke up to pain and alarms. His suit had injected him with medical drugs to keep him alive, but he was hurt badly. His ribs were broken. His left arm would not move properly. Blood covered his face from a cut on his forehead. He looked out the cracked viewport of his pod. The moon's surface was gray and covered in craters. In the distance, he could see the wreckage of other pods scattered across the landscape. Some were burning. Some were just broken pieces of metal. "Computer status report," he whispered. "Life support functional for 6 hours," the computer replied. "Communications damaged. Emergency beacon not transmitting. Hull breach sealed, but atmosphere leaking slowly." Taemin closed his eyes. He had known this might happen. The escape plan had always been desperate. But they had succeeded in their main goal. The Vrexians had learned that humans were dangerous, and the data about Vrexian technology was stored in every pod's computer. If even one survivor made it home, the Federation would have the information it needed. He forced himself to move, ignoring the pain. He had to find other survivors. He had to get that data transmitted to human space. The sacrifice of the horizon's edge would mean nothing if the knowledge died with them. Using the pod's emergency kit, Taemin sealed his wounds and stabilized his broken ribs. He put on the environmental suit stored in the pod's locker. The suit was designed for short excursions, not survival on a hostile moon, but it would have to do. He climbed out of the pod and stood on the moon's surface. The gravity was light, making movement easier despite his injuries. In the sky above, he could see the Vrexian fleet searching for survivors. Fighter craft flew in patterns, scanning the surface. Taemin activated his suit radio on the emergency frequency. "This is Captain Taemin to any Horizon's Edge survivors. Respond if you can hear me." Static answered him for several seconds. Then a voice came through, weak but clear. "Captain, this is Haya Jin. I'm alive. My pod landed about 2 kilometers north of your position." Relief flooded through Taemin. "Are you injured?" "Cuts and bruises, but I can walk. My pod's computer has all the data we collected. Captain, we need to get this information home." Another voice joined the channel. "This is Lieutenant Sung Ho. I'm 3 kilometers east. My legs are broken, but I'm stable. Captain, there's an old mining facility on this moon. The records say it was abandoned 20 years ago. It might have a communications array we could use. Tae-min pulled up the map function on his suit. Sung-ho was right. The facility was shown on the survey data, about 15 kilometers from their current position. It was a long way to travel in damaged suits with limited life support, but it was their only chance. That's our destination, Tae-min decided. We need to reach that facility and transmit our data to Federation space. Sung-ho, can you move? Not on my own, sir. I'll need help. Hyejin and I will get you, Tae-min said. Stay hidden. Those fighters are still searching for us. As if responding to his words, a Vrexian fighter screamed overhead. Its searchlights swept across the crater field, looking for survivors. Tae-min pressed himself flat against a rock and stayed perfectly still until it passed. Above the moon, on the Eternal Conquest, Vexithar stood looking at the holographic display of the moon's surface. His forces had destroyed 38 of the 47 escape pods. 9 were still unaccounted for, likely crashed on the moon's far side where the terrain made scanning difficult. Land-ground forces, he ordered. I want every human found. Search every crater. Check every crash site, and I will lead the hunt personally. Krell Noth looked surprised. Commander, you have not led a ground mission in years. This is beneath your rank. Vexithar turned to face his second officer. His 4 eyes were cold and hard. These humans destroyed 3 of my cruisers with a research vessel. They sacrificed themselves to hurt us. I need to understand how they think. I need to see how they fight when there is no escape. This is not beneath me. This is necessary. He walked toward the shuttle bay, already planning the hunt. The humans were wounded and stranded on a hostile moon. They had no weapons, no support, and no hope of rescue. Victory was certain, but Vexthar wanted to understand his enemy before they died. He wanted to know what had driven them to such desperate action. And deep in his mind, a small voice whispered a question that he did not want to acknowledge. If a research crew could do this much damage, what would happen when he faced human warriors? The moon's surface was cold and dead. Tae-min moved carefully between the rocks, trying to stay hidden from the Vrexian fighters overhead. Every few minutes, he had to stop and rest. His broken ribs made breathing painful. His medical suit was doing its best to keep him alive, but he knew he was running on borrowed time. After an hour of slow movement, he found Hyejin. She was hiding in a small crater, her suit covered in dust. Her face showed relief when she saw him. Captain, I was starting to think you wouldn't make it, she said. I almost didn't, Tae-min admitted. We need to get to Sung-ho and then move toward that mining facility. Can you walk? Yes, but we have another problem. Hyejin pointed toward the horizon. The Vrexians have landed ground forces. I counted at least 30 soldiers. They're spreading out in a search pattern. Tae-min looked where she pointed. He could see the alien soldiers moving methodically across the landscape. They had scanners and weapons. They were trained and organized. And somewhere among them was likely the commander himself, leading the hunt. Then we need to move smart, not fast, Tae-min said. Use the terrain, stay low, and if they find us, we make them pay for every step. They found Sung-ho in his crashed pod. The young lieutenant was pale from pain, but alert. His legs were badly broken, held straight by his suit's medical braces. Moving him would be difficult and slow. Leave me, Sung-ho said when he saw them. I'll just slow you down. Get the data to the Federation. That's what matters. Not happening, Tae-min said firmly. We don't leave people behind. That's not how humans work. They rigged a makeshift carrier using pieces from Sung-ho's damaged pod. It was not comfortable, but it allowed them to move him. The 3 humans began their long journey toward the mining facility, moving slowly and carefully. Behind them, Vexthar walked across the moon's surface with his hunting party. He had found several human crash sites. The bodies showed him something interesting. These humans had tried to survive. They had used their emergency equipment efficiently. They had even attempted to help each other, as evidenced by drag marks and shared supplies at some sites. Most species he had conquered would have simply waited for death or begged for mercy. These humans had kept fighting even after their ship was destroyed. Even after they crashed on this hostile moon, they refused to give up. "Commander, we found fresh tracks," one of his soldiers reported. "3 humans, heading northeast. One appears to be injured and being carried." Vexthar studied the tracks in the dust. The humans were clever. They were using the crater shadows to hide their heat signatures from aerial scans. They were moving during the times when his fighters were furthest away. They were adapting to the situation. "Follow them," Vexthar ordered. "But keep your distance. I want to see where they're going." The 3 humans moved through the day and into the moon's long night. The temperature dropped dramatically, and their suits struggled to maintain heat. They had to keep moving to stay warm. Taemin could feel his strength fading. Every step was harder than the last. "Captain, we're being followed," Hyejin said quietly. "I saw movement about a kilometer back. They're tracking us." Taemin had known this would happen. The Vrexians were better equipped and knew they were out here. Eventually they would be caught. But maybe they could slow the pursuit down. "There's a narrow pass ahead," he said, checking his suit's map. "Between those 2 ridges. It's the only easy way through this terrain." "A bottleneck," Sung-Ho said, understanding immediately. "We could set a trap." They worked quickly. Using power cells from Sung-Ho's pod, they created an improvised explosive device. It was crude but effective. They placed it in the pass and covered it with loose rock. Then they continued moving, leaving an obvious trail. 2 hours later, a Vrexian patrol entered the pass. The explosion tore through the narrow space, bringing down rocks from the ridge above. 3 Vrexian soldiers were killed instantly. 2 more were injured and had to be carried back by their companions. Vexthar looked at the dead soldiers and the collapsed pass. The humans had set a trap. They had no weapons, no military training, yet they had killed his warriors using nothing but salvaged equipment and knowledge of terrain. "Commander, perhaps we should call in an aerial strike," Krelnoth suggested through the communication channel. "Eliminate the entire area." "No," Vexthar said. "I want them alive. I want to understand them." But inside, he was beginning to feel something unfamiliar. Not fear exactly, but recognition. These humans fought like predators, not prey. They used every advantage. They refused to accept defeat. Over the next several hours, the humans set 2 more traps. One used a damaged power cell to create an electromagnetic pulse that disabled Vrexian scanners. Another caused a small rock slide that injured more soldiers. Each time, the humans bought themselves more distance and more time. Finally, after 2 days of movement, the 3 survivors saw the mining facility. It was old and partially buried by dust, but the main building was intact. More importantly, they could see communication antenna on the roof. "That's our target," Taemin said. "If we can get inside and power up that array, we can transmit our data to Federation space." They moved as quickly as they could toward the facility. But Vexthar's forces had figured out where they were heading. The Vrexian commander ordered his remaining soldiers to surround the building. The trap was set. The humans had nowhere else to run. Taemin, Hyejin, and Sung-Ho made it inside the facility just as the Vrexian forces closed in. They sealed the main door behind them and looked around. The building was dark and filled with old equipment. Dust covered everything. But the main power generator was still present, and it looked like it might still work. "Me son, if you were here, you could get this running in minutes," Taemin said quietly, thinking of his engineer. He hoped she had survived somewhere, maybe in a pod they had not found, maybe escaped somehow. "I learned a few things from watching her," Hyejin said. She moved to the generator and began working. "Give me 10 minutes. Outside, Vexthar positioned his soldiers around the building. He had lost 8 warriors to human traps. 8 trained soldiers killed by 3 wounded researchers. The number should have been impossible. The tactical reality should have been obvious. But somehow, these humans kept defying expectations. "Seal all exits," he ordered. "But do not attack yet. Let me speak to them first." He walked to the main door and activated his translator. "Humans inside the facility. I am Commander Vexthar. You are surrounded. You have no escape. Surrender now and I will make your deaths quick and painless." Inside, Taemin heard the alien's voice through the door. He looked at Hee-jin, who was still working on the generator. "How long?" "5 more minutes," she replied, not looking up from her work. Sung-ho had found an old mining rifle in a storage locker. It was meant for breaking rocks, not fighting aliens. But it was better than nothing. He positioned himself to cover the door, even though his broken legs meant he could not move from his spot. Taemin went to the door and spoke loudly enough for his suit's external speakers to carry. "Commander Vexthar, you made a mistake when you ordered us neutralized. You underestimated us. You thought we were weak. You thought we would die easily." "You are dying," Vexthar replied. "You are cornered in a dead building on a dead moon. You have fought well, but the fight is over." "The fight is never over while we're still breathing," Taemin said. "That's something you should learn about humans." "Then I will learn it by watching you die," Vexthar said. He signaled his soldiers to prepare for assault. Inside, Hye-jin's hands flew over the old controls. The generator coughed, sputtered, and then roared to life. Lights flickered on throughout the facility. The communication array on the roof began to power up. "Got it!" Hye-jin shouted. She ran to the communication console and began entering the data from her pod's computer. "Transmitting now. All the information we gathered about the Vrexians is going out on all Federation emergency frequencies." "How long until someone receives it?" Taemin asked. "The nearest Federation outpost is 4 light-years away. With our quantum transmission boost, the signal should reach them in about 30 seconds. 30 seconds. That was all they needed now. Just 30 more seconds and their mission would be complete. The Federation would have the information it needed to fight the Vrexians. The sacrifice of the Horizon's Edge would not be in vain. "Hold them off," Taemin said to Sung-ho. "Just a little longer." The young lieutenant nodded and aimed his mining rifle at the door. Outside, they could hear Vexthar giving orders to his soldiers. The assault was about to begin. The final battle was here. The Vrexian soldiers charged the door with heavy weapons. The metal began to glow under their cutting beams. Inside, Sung-ho fired his mining rifle through the weakening barrier. The weapon was not designed for combat, but at close range, it could still hurt. One Vrexian soldier fell back with damaged armor. "Transmission complete," Hye-jin announced. "The data is away. The Federation has everything we learned about Vrexian technology and tactics." Taemin felt a weight lift from his shoulders. They had done it. Even if they died here, they had completed their mission. The information would reach human space. The colonies would be warned. The military would prepare. The Vrexians would not catch humanity unprepared again. The door finally gave way. Vrexian soldiers poured into the facility. Sung-ho fired again and again until his rifle overheated and stopped working. Taemin and Hye-jin threw anything they could find at the advancing aliens. Old tools, broken equipment. They fought with desperation and fury. Then Vexthar himself entered the facility. He was larger than his soldiers and moved with the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. His weapon was raised, pointing at Taemin. "Enough," the commander said. "You have fought well for prey animals, but it ends now." Taemin stood straight, ignoring his pain and exhaustion. He looked directly at Vexthar with eyes that showed no fear. "You wanted to neutralize me, Commander. Congratulations. You succeeded, but you made 2 mistakes." Vexthar tilted his head, curious despite himself. "What mistakes?" "The first was thinking I was the weapon," Taemin said. "I was never the weapon. The information was the weapon," And you let us transmit it. The Federation now knows everything about you. Your ships, your tactics, your weaknesses. We found them all. Vexthar felt something cold in his chest. The transmission. In his focus on hunting the survivors, he had not considered what they might be trying to accomplish. He had assumed they were simply trying to survive. But they had a greater goal. They had used themselves as bait, drawing his forces in while they completed their real mission. And the second mistake? Vexthar asked quietly. Taemin smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. The second mistake was teaching us exactly how you fight. We know your patterns now. We know how you think. And humans learn fast, Commander. We adapt. We evolve. We take everything you throw at us and use it against you. Before Vexthar could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Not human alarms, but Vrexian ones. On his suit display, Vexthar saw something that made his blood run cold. Ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel all around the moon. Human ships. A lot of them. The Federation Rapid Response Fleet had arrived. Led by Admiral Jiwoo, 12 destroyers and 5 cruisers appeared in attack formation. They had received Hyejin's transmission and immediately jumped to the system. More importantly, they had received all the tactical data about Vrexian technology. They knew how to fight these aliens now. All forces, fall back to the ships, Vexthar ordered. He looked at Taemin one last time. This is not over, human. No, it's not, Taemin agreed. But now it's a fair fight. The Vrexian forces retreated to their fleet. Within minutes, the space around the moon became a battlefield. The human ships moved in patterns that confused the Vrexian targeting systems. They exploited weaknesses in Vrexian shields that Hyejin's team had identified. They used tactics specifically designed to counter Vrexian weapons. Admiral Jiwoo commanded from her flagship, the Indomitable. She was a veteran of the border wars and knew how to fight smart against a superior enemy. Every 5 minutes, she changed her fleet's attack pattern. The Vrexians could not adapt fast enough. Their doctrine of overwhelming force was useless against an enemy that refused to fight the expected battle. One human destroyer, the Relentless, made a suicide run at a Vrexian battlecruiser. But instead of ramming it, the ship veered away at the last second, using the maneuver to drop a pattern of mines in the larger ship's path. The battlecruiser hit the mines, and its shields collapsed. Human missiles finished it off. Vexthar watched his fleet taking losses and could not understand it. The humans had fewer ships. They had weaker weapons. By every measure, he should be winning. But somehow, the humans were outfighting him. They were using the information from Taemin's crew to counter every move he made. "Commander, we should retreat," Krelnoth urged. "We can regroup with the main Dominion fleet and return with more ships." For the first time in his career, Vexthar considered retreat. But pride held him back. He had never retreated. Never. To do so now would show weakness. The Dominion did not tolerate weakness. "Prepare the flagship's main weapon," he ordered. "We will destroy their command ship and break their formation." The Eternal Conquest's primary cannon began charging. It was a massive weapon that could crack a planet's crust. Against a human destroyer, it would be total destruction. Vexthar targeted the Indomitable and prepared to fire, but something streaked across space toward his flagship. A small fighter craft, damaged and barely holding together. Its pilot was making an attack run directly at the Eternal Conquest. "Who is that fool?" Vexthar demanded. His sensors identified the fighter. It was a Vrexian craft, stolen and modified with human technology, and the pilot was engineer Mi-sun, the one survivor from the Horizon's Edge that Vexthar had thought was dead. Mi-sun had survived her pod crash on the far side of the moon. She had spent 2 days scavenging parts from destroyed Vrexian fighters. She had rebuilt one into a working craft using nothing but her engineering knowledge and desperate determination. Now she was making her own suicide run, targeting the flagship's engine section. "Destroy that fighter!" Vexthar ordered. But Mi-sun was too close, too fast. She flew her patched-together craft straight into the Eternal Conquest's faster-than-light drive. The explosion was not large enough to destroy the flagship, but it crippled the engines completely. The massive warship was now stranded in the system, unable to escape. Admiral Jiwoo saw her opportunity. "All ships, concentrate fire on the flagship. Disable it." The human fleet focused their attacks on the Eternal Conquest. Without its ability to escape, the flagship was vulnerable. Its shields began to fail. Its weapons were overwhelmed. Within minutes, Vexthar's command ship was dead in space. "Surrender," came Admiral Jiwoo's voice over the communication channel. "Your flagship is disabled. Your fleet is defeated. Surrender, and your crew will be treated according to the laws of war." Vexthar looked around his damaged command center. Sparks flew from broken consoles. Half his crew was injured or dead. His ship was powerless. For the first time in 47 conquered systems, he had lost. "I surrender," he said quietly. The battle ended. The Vrexian fleet withdrew, leaving their commander behind. Human ships surrounded the Eternal Conquest and sent boarding parties to secure it. On the moon's surface, human rescue teams found Taemin, Hyejin, and Sung-ho in the mining facility. They were wounded and exhausted but alive. Medical teams immediately began treating their injuries. Days later, after recovering in the hospital ship, Taemin was brought to meet Admiral Jiwoo. She was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She studied him for a long moment before speaking. "Captain Taemin, your action saved countless lives. The information your crew transmitted gave us the advantage we needed. The Federation is in your debt." "We just did what we had to do," Taemin replied. "We couldn't let them keep killing colonies without a fight." "You did more than fight," Jiwoo said. "You taught them that humanity is not prey. You showed them the cost of underestimating us." She paused. "The Vrexian Dominion has contacted us. They want to negotiate." Taemin looked surprised. "Negotiate? They destroyed Vega Prime. They killed 5,000 people." "I know," Jiwoo said, "but they've realized they can't simply conquer us. Your crew proved that. One research vessel took down 3 cruisers. Our fleet defeated theirs even though they had superior technology. They're scared now, Captain. Scared of what might happen if they continue this war." Over the following weeks, negotiations began. The Vrexian Dominion agreed to cease all attacks on human territory. They returned Vexthar to his people, but his career was over. He had lost his first battle, and the Dominion did not tolerate failure. Taemin was promoted to admiral and became the Federation's chief negotiator with the Vrexians. Hyejin served as his xenocultural advisor, helping both sides understand each other. Sung-ho recovered from his injuries and became a military instructor, teaching young officers about asymmetric warfare. And Mi-sun, who had survived against impossible odds and delivered the final blow to the Vrexian flagship, returned to engineering. But her name became famous throughout human space as a symbol of human resourcefulness and determination. 20 years later, Taemin stood on the moon, where the Horizon's Edge crew had made their final stand. A memorial had been built there, a tall structure of polished stone listing the names of all 47 crew members who had served on the ship. With him stood his old crew and some unexpected guests. A group of young Vrexians, students participating in a cultural exchange program. They had come to learn about the battle and understand the humans who had changed their empire forever. "Admiral Taemin," one of the young Vrexians asked respectfully, "why did you destroy your own ship? Why did you sacrifice so much?" Taemin looked at the memorial, at the names of friends and colleagues who had died. "Because we had to show your people something important, that humans don't give up, that we fight smartest when we're most desperate, that underestimating us is the worst mistake anyone can make. Commander Vexithar learned that, another Vrexian student said. He teaches at our military academy now. He tells all his students about you. He says you taught him that victory is not just about having the biggest weapons. What else does he teach? Hyejin asked curiously. He teaches that respect must be earned through understanding, not fear, the student replied. That every species has something to teach us. That arrogance is the greatest weakness a warrior can have. Taemin smiled. Then maybe something good came from all this pain. Maybe the war helped both our peoples learn and grow. He turned to look at the stars above, where human and Vrexian ships now patrolled together, protecting the trade routes and colonies of both species. The peace was not perfect, but it was real, built on mutual respect earned through hard lessons. And on the memorial behind him, one line was carved below all the names. They ordered our neutralization. We taught them the cost of underestimating the will to survive.